Hello, James here. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I had a good video, but my camera went out on me, and so this is something going to be really eye-opening. First, I'm going to start out with black people. Then I'm going to lead you to some data. Then I'm going to show you the other side of what the two Americas look like from a different perspective. And I hope I'm gonna start with this video. Try not to, because it's my clock time is. But I'm gonna let this guy tell you the story about America.
There's nothing wrong with telling achievement of black people, preachers, educators, and business people. There's nothing in the world wrong with it. Problem is, the violence that was put against blacks from the end of the Civil War on up to the 1960s actually defined blacks in Kentucky. So it kind of changed how blacks look at not only our state but at the nation, because you were saying one thing as a state and as a nation as far as how you were doing and were, but you were doing another thing to intimidate, scare, and terrorize a group of these citizens. In 208, it was the 100-year anniversary of the lynching of 4 young men. I thought it was important that people knew what happened here in 1908, because ever since I was a kid, you kind of heard rumors of what happened. They would say it's about rape, or somebody broke in somebody's house. I thought it was so important that people knew exactly what went on. So that was the purpose of putting the exhibit up. In 1908, a young guy named Rufus Browder was working for the overseer of Dr. Jesse Russell's farm named James Cunningham. Rufus told him he wanted to get off and go to Allensville, which was close to the farm, to get some medicine for his wife. Rufus asked, does the man have 30 days to leave? And Cunningham said, no. And Rufus said, well, hell, I don't like your darn sort of thing. Cunningham was alleged to give him an X-ring, and then both of them drew their pistols. Cunningham shot Rufus, and Rufus shot Cunningham. Rufus ran down the road and hid in a sinkhole on his father's farm. Cunningham died in the road. When the neighbors heard of what happened, people started gathering and looking for Rufus. And they were gathering in groups with guns and everything. Sheriff Tom Ray, who was the sheriff of Logan County at that time, got the word that there had been a killing, so he took a train down there to try to hunt for Rufus. And he ran into Rufus's father, Fletcher Browder Sr. Fletcher kept noticing all these armed mobs, so he got scared, and eventually he sent word to Tom Ray that if he would guarantee Rufus's life, that he would turn Rufus in. Fletcher took Tom Ray where Rufus was hiding in a sinkhole on a farm between Fletcher's farm and another. When they got Rufus out of the sinkhole, they asked him, has anybody been here? He said John Boyette, which was his brother-in-law, said he was telling me what was going on around the house. Tom Ray arrested him. They got word that a mob was coming, that a mob would be descending on the jail to take Rufus. So Tom Ray and Jailer Butchers, the jailer, came up with a scheme where they would hide him, and then eventually they would take him to Bowling Green. So they took him to a local black cemetery and hid him. And the next morning they put Rufus on the train and sent him to Bowling Green for safety. About 2 weeks later, a guy named John Jones and his brother Bertha Jones were meeting at a lodge meeting. The lodge was the True Reformer Lodge. They passed a resolution saying that Rufus had killed Cunningham in self-defense. The authorities descended on the mob meeting and arrested John Jones and Bertha Jones. They arrested them for hindering prosecution and threatening a witness, I believe. They also arrested John Boyer, who had been telling Rufus what was going on, and they arrested him for hindering prosecution. So all three of them On the morning of August the 1st, 1908, the mob descended on the jail and they demanded prisons. They told the jailer if he didn't give them food, then they would kill him. The mob told the jailer, said, we come to get Rufus Body. He said, Rufus ain't in. They said, well, we come to get those other in that they arrested. So they went into jail and they took one out, tied his hand, and marched him out. They took another one out, tied his hand, and marched him out. They took another one out, tied his hand, and marched him out. Then they took the fourth one out, tied his hand, and marched him out. They marched him past the mayor's house, Armstrong Street, where the lynching tree was, where a number of lynchings had already occurred. And they lynched him. They left a note on him. And the note said, let this be a warning to you niggas. Let white people alone when you go the same damn way. Your lodges and halls better shut up and quit. When the news got out that there was a lynching, people came from all around to look at the bodies. One guy came, was a guy named Bud Morton, and he took pictures of it. And another guy took pictures of it. And eventually they became postcards. Eventually Rufus would go to 3 trials. The first trial would be a hung jury. If my memory serves me correct, it was 10 for the death penalty, 1 for life in prison, and 1 for 21 years. The one for 21 years, they said they ran him out of town. The family heard that Rufus was going to get out of prison, and they were told to meet him at the train station. When they got to the train station, they waited on the Jim Crow car because in those days, blacks couldn't ride in all the cars. And they waited for people to get off the Jim Crow car and he never got off. So they went to the conductor of the train and said, we're looking for Rufus Browder. He's supposed to be on this train coming from Lyon County, and he's not on it. He said, by God, he's here. And he took him to a boxcar and opened him up, and he was in the boxcar in the pine box. His death certificate said he died of tuberculosis. No. In Logan County, the racial situation kind of changed because I don't think that the local people liked the publicity. It was national publicity. It was in the New York Times. It was in the Chicago Tribune. The story went all over the United States. One of it was the postcard. The postcard was made, declared unmailable, and if my memory serves me correct, laws were passed where you cannot mail out things in mail after that. You know, and like I said, it was used to scare and intimidate. That's what you do. You scare and you intimidate and you use violence. When the lynching occurred, they sent them to black people. If you get out of line, this is what happened to you. They used to intimidate. That's all it's about, is to intimidate. Another aspect of it, I think, was that all whites in Logan County didn't agree with them. They didn't agree with the lynching. They didn't agree with all of it. I think when you look at what's going on now and you look at what went on then, that you had a lot of whites come out with this Black Lives Matter and with this protest. You had a lot of whites in America who decided that they had enough. On one hand, to me, it was a good thing that all those white people came out to support who seen what happened to George Floyd as being wrong. But on another thing, it's saying that the only way we don't get murdered is that white people step away. That's kind of what happened. Like I said, we've got to change. And change is not changing your mind. Change is changing your heart. We've got to change our hearts. We've got to change who we are, who we have become. You know, to me, we have to start telling these stories. We have to start telling them to let whites understand what went on, but also to help blacks understand what happened. I think the Commonwealth has got to start dealing with the truth of what it done to the citizens of African American descent. They've got to start talking about it. They've got to start telling about it. let people see what happened. And if we do it, I think we'll be a better Commonwealth.
Wow. Ain't that something? That was in 1908. Let's come up here to this town.
Now, models and mass production of them has lowered the cost of painting. They can be painted if the owner should ever desire a new color scheme. And so it is, from New York to Los Angeles, from Miami to Seattle, in every climate, in every community, this new sidewall has brought better homes. And now let's go to Levittown, a modern garden community in Long Island, New York. A community designed for modern living. And here we find another authority, Mr. Norman Denny, Vice President for Materials of Levitt & Sons, builders of Levittown. Mr. Denny, we see that you're using asbestos cement siding on your homes. Can you tell us why?
Yes. These sidewalls help us create distinctive and attractive homes. Our customers like them. We've sold more than 17,000 homes here in Levittown. And in this business, a very important point is to figure your cost right down to the bone. This type sidewall is not only good, it's economical too. And more important, it helps us keep on schedule. It has a long life and a low cost of maintenance. And first, last, and always, our customers like them. And what they like, we like.
Thank you, Mr. Denny. And so, we suggest you consider this material for the walls of your home. Designed to last a lifetime. A trouble-free lifetime.
Oh, it is attractive.
Yes, and it'll stay that way too. That's what I like about it.
Yes, and that goes for all who plan to build a new home or modernize an old one. For here, like your modern plastics, like your asbestos roof, like your modern floor covering, is a material made according to plan. A product developed to meet your needs and designed for a lifetime of beauty.
My name's Roy Webb. I'm the builder of this housing development. Kind of proud of it, too. It's going to be a real nice place to live for a lot of folks. You know, I've been building houses for better than 20 years. And if there's one thing I've learned in all that time, it's that building is more than just brick and mortar and a lot of hard work. Building is people. People with hopes and dreams. People with problems to solve. People like Jack and Ruth Miller, a young couple who left here a few minutes ago. Like a lot of young couples today, Ruth and Jack dreamed for a long time about building a home of their own. They saved their money, and after a good deal of looking, picked a site here and settled on the kind of house I'm building in my development. Generally, they agreed. It suited both their tastes and their budget. Specifically, they couldn't agree at all.
Jack, we've been over this before.
And I've tried to show you.
I know, there's only so much money.
Right,
And
and
there's one thing I'm not going to do without. Wall-to-wall carpeting.
but
Even if it means skipping on things like those underground pipes or whatever they are you and Roy were talking about.
Roy and I were discussing the sanitation and drainage system, dear.
Well, I guess we need that too, but Jimmy, don't you dare.
This is just a practice mission.
Never mind. I know all about your practice missions. Now you sit in that big chair there and behave yourself.
Okay, Mom.
Now, Jack. Well, I was just going to say that after all, I don't know anything about pipes or wires.
That's just the point.
But the first thing company always notices is how the floors look.
Are we building this house for company or for ourselves?
Well, you're at the office most of the time anyway. I'm the one that has to live in this house.
Okay. But you're not going to like it when your house is always being torn up for new plumbing or new wiring.
I don't see why.
Just because we didn't put in the best materials to begin with. Let's face it, this house is going to have to last us a long time.
I know that, dear.
So we've got to build it to last. You don't build a house every day. You build it once and...
I know. Once and forever.
Although the faces of America's major cities seem relatively unchanged, a quiet revolution has been taking place there for nearly a decade. More than 1 million persons each year have pulled up stakes in the cities and turned commuter, traveling 20, 30, 40 or more miles each day from home to office, factory or business, and back again. Part of the lure of the suburb is in the greater elbow room it offers. Part of it is due to that relative newcomer to our economy, the budget-priced home. This symbol of modern American living has brought with it more than a changing landscape. It has changed a great industry. Keen competition in the booming home construction industry has forced re-examination of almost every time-honored method, with a view to improving quality and at the same time reducing costs. Consider Levittown, Delaware Valley, USA, one of the world's largest single-unit housing developments, located in the fast-growing industrial area between Philadelphia and New York City. Here, 16,000 low-cost homes are being constructed on spacious landscape lots bordering gently sloped, winding streets. This is no mere collection of homes, but a carefully planned community, complete with modern schools, churches chosen by the residents, but conforming architecturally with other Levittown buildings, playgrounds that leave nothing to be desired, and modern shopping centers that offer easy access without through traffic. Here, nearly 5,000 new homes per year rise out of an area that was only yesterday swamp and meadow and brush. The speed and precision teamwork that makes possible this mass production of low-cost homes on a profit-producing basis is a tribute to the enterprise of the American construction industry. Each of the Levittown home lots has 34 pieces of shrubbery. Multiply that by 16,000, and you have a job much too big for hand labor. But the Ford tractor and post hole digger make easy work of it. And from Levittown to Los Angeles, from Minneapolis to Miami, the quiet revolution continues as a great industry provides better homes for...
I wasn't expecting that. Okay, let me take you to what that man was giving you the history of yesterday about out in 1908 in Kentucky. Let's bring it up to speed. This video is from Southern Life. The 10 most racist places in the USA.
Building and protecting wealth is more daunting than ever. Amid global market volatility.
Got on that subject, and I'm doing better. I'm feeling like that Hank Williams song. I'm feeling better now that I'm back on the road. I feel better now I'm back on the road. I'm getting my life together.
Oh.
You know what I mean? I'm good. Remarkably, we did find some statistical information about hate in the South, and it turns out that my personal experiences correlate perfectly with these maps. When you study these online maps that break down racism, 2 states stand out the most. That is Alabama and Mississippi. The state of Louisiana, infamous for its criminal system with more inmates than any other state in the country, with a strong correlation between my personal experiences, online statistics, and the mapping of crime, racism, and hate. I can tell you that this is the best list you're going to find on this topic in the internet. We have extensively traveled the region of the country where the most concentration of hate and racism exists. The purpose of this video is to help people who are moving to avoid putting their families in an environment they do not want to be in. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes. Any comment that is disrespectful will not be allowed in the comment section. We invite educated dialogue, but if you're not professional and your goal is to offend other people, we will not tolerate you on this channel. YouTube already has a built-in filter that does not allow these type of comments anyways. So what is racism? In the context that we're using it in this video, it is a malintentioned prejudice towards other people. In the southern region of the United States, this has been perfected over the centuries. When I moved to Alabama, I thought that I knew everything there was to know about racism. However, Alabama was like a school of racism that I went through. Something you'll never be able to forget. And this is why I encourage people to not take these options for their families as destinations to move to. Because once your family is exposed to this mentality, you'll never be able to get rid of those traits. So racism, in the context that it's happening in the United States right now, in these places in the deep south, works like this. It turns the victims into perpetrators. Racism has been perfected, and those who are initially the victims of racism will soon become the perpetrators of racism themselves. Unknowingly, your auto-defense to racism is to react in a racist way yourself. And this isn't something that you do on purpose. It is something that underlyingly you are being taught to subconsciously and indirectly have a reaction to how other people are treating you. People who are racist understand that being that way is the most bitter, hurtful, and depressing sentiment that a human being can have. So by turning your enemies, your victims, into racists, you are perpetually putting upon them the same burden that you are carrying. Therefore, racism breeds racist. And racist people understand that turning other people into racists that they don't like is the most hurtful thing that they could do to that person. Because now that individual will be depressed, sad, they will feel hurt and bitter, full of resentment, taking actions that they don't agree with, but they're doing it anyways, despite the fact that they're aware that it leads to nothing productive. When you look at the history of the United States, in particular that of slavery in the Deep South, you come to understand that today you have people who are resentful and who feel hurt about the things that happened to their people in the past. And that is exactly the sentiment that racist people would want you to feel. If somebody is wanting to make you angry and you become angry, you are giving that person a remote control to your emotions. You don't want to become energized behind their actions. You want to take the batteries out of that remote control. That even if there's no batteries, you still know what buttons they were pushing. The best reaction is to take the batteries out of your control and make sure that even though they're pressing those buttons, that the channel's not going anywhere, that you're not giving them the power to control your emotions. If you've never experienced racism that is this elaborate, you hand over the controller to this person and let them pick what channel you're going to watch. I'm at the stage where I've taken the batteries out of that controller and, well, there's no emotion behind it. Let's get going on this list. Number 10 is Montgomery, Alabama. This is where I spent 1 year of my life. It was the scariest, most violent, and most depressing year of my life. Many people who live here don't respect nothing of the civil rights movements that happen in this city. But when you first come to Montgomery, you might want to see the Rosa Parks statue or learn a little bit about the area's history, or maybe cross that bridge in Selma. And you just hand that controller to anybody. What you're unaware of is that these people are watching your every move, and they're taking advantage of your sentimental attachment to what you're feeling by seeing those things. You're basically putting all your poker cards out on the table, and there's professional poker players that are going to take advantage of that. And they have a really good poker face. When you land in Montgomery, you're like one of those controllers that has like 1,000 buttons they can push. Cheapest metropolitan area in the country for a reason. Nobody wants to live here. The reason they don't want to live here is because how hateful the people that live here are. Number 9 is Birmingham, Alabama. you're going to hear Alabama a lot on this list. Just like the entire state of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana are red on that map, those three states are going to dominate this list here as well. There's an online list of all the people that were murdered in 2021 in Birmingham, Alabama. Among them were Latinos who were murdered by none other than police officers. That doesn't include the ones that accidentally hit by vehicles, the ones that accidentally had workplace accidents. As I started to meet other Latinos in the Montgomery and Birmingham area, it was immediately present how many people were being hurt in car accidents or workplaces. Those are the ones that are covered up pretty well. The police in these two cities will outright tell you that they're not going to investigate criminal offenses that are perpetrated on people that are not native to Alabama. They stand behind State Law 56, the most unconstitutional law in the United States, affected by any state, which the Supreme Court was not interested in fighting because of state rights issues. Basically, if you're not an Alabama citizen or a U.S. citizen, you are a free kill, a walking target. But hey, they're not too interested in asking you for your ID or finding out if you're legal. If you're not from Alabama, they're just going to assume you're illegal. They're not going to care if you have your papers. It's a racist law. It doesn't matter. That's just their pretext in order to be able to say, hey, if you come to Alabama, whether you're legal or not, if you're not from here, we're not going to protect you. If you are a foreigner, this is not a state you want to live in. Number 8 is Greenville, Alabama. Segregation is in full effect here. If you are not the right race and you walk into a business in this town, there will be a serious commotion. People here know the black people cannot go to the businesses downtown, and the white people are not allowed to go to the black businesses. I was not aware of this. I went to Greenville and I didn't want to eat downtown. I was kind of in the mood for something like barbecue. I found a barbecue place, I had some good ratings. When I showed up to the restaurant, all of the customers walked out, and the people that were running the business looked at me like it was my fault that the customers walked out. On top of that, they literally closed the business right there on the spot, told me to leave because they're not closed. So despite I wasn't in the mood for eating downtown, we had to go eat downtown because we really weren't welcome in the other businesses. When you experience this, you feel depressed, you feel unwanted, you feel unwelcomed, you feel like you caused somebody else hardship, when really they're the ones that are causing it to you. Into a barber shop or a car wash or a restaurant in many towns.
So you guys going to Alabama, don't go to that part of Alabama.
Situation. Usually the business owner's reaction is
especially
that
interracial couple,
went
do
there
not go
to
there.
harm their business and scare away their customers. And this is how you are programmed to become racist in Alabama, where when you're not being racist, you're paying the price of being embarrassed and being put in awkward situations all the time. It feels like you're the bad person because you're not racist. Like you should have known not to go to this business. Start to be programmed to know that you have to be racist, not because you sentimentally feel that way, but because if you're not like that, then you're going to end up in some really awkward situations. Number 7 is Pulaski, Tennessee. This is where the K was founded. These types of southern racist places have a way of making you feel uncomfortable, making you feel guilty as if you were the bad one. It's like the less racist you are, the more you're going to suffer. It's real easy. If you just go with the flow, you fight back, they're going to make your life miserable. It's easy to say that you are whatever you say you are in a place where it's not being put to the test constantly at your expense. When I went to Pulaski, I went to pump gas. The pump was open, and I was really surprised that the pump was open because where I'm from, we don't do that because people would steal the gas. So I mentioned it to them that, hey, in Florida where I'm from, you don't leave the pump open because people would steal it. So I walk outside to pump the gas, and 3 guys walk outside with shotguns and watch me pump my gas. That these people in these small towns are going to make you feel uncomfortable. Moving on to number 6, Camp Hill, Alabama. Condition of this town speaks for itself on the effect that hate and racism has on a town. There's a massive correlation between extreme poverty, high crime, and racism. They all go hand in hand. This was one of the first towns that I went to in Alabama when I was up there, and I had no idea the reaction that I was going to get from the people of this town. Everything in the comments was threats.
Hey guys, it's Jason
Wow.
Hansen. I'm here at the 2023 SHOT
So you
Show.
guys going through
I've seen some
Alabama, be
pretty cool
careful.
things, but the thing I'm most excited about doesn't have anything to do with guns or...
Everything in the comments was threats, hate, people saying horrible things. I did this video like I would have done any video in Florida, but in my naive mindset, I didn't understand the political, racist context that these people were looking at it from. On top of that, segregation. I shouldn't have even been in that town to begin with. I was literally walking into the lion's den and had no idea where I was. It's to the point where everything's a threat, every outsider's evil. There's not a lot you can do as an outsider to change their mind. Just not go there and stay out. Number 5 is Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Despite having a lot of good suburbs, this city has a reputation of killing anybody who's from here that picks up a little bit of fame or success. They don't even care about their own successful people. So what makes you think they're going to care about you as an outsider? Don't let the affordability of this place and the fact that there's new houses and new suburbs confuse you into thinking that this is a place you want to put your family. That's a mistake that I made with Montgomery, Alabama, and I can assure you Baton Rouge is way worse. I found some Spanish people in this town and I talked to them, and I could tell by how racist they had become, the way they've been treated in the time they've been here. Back to the theme about not caring about themselves, the town has some of the worst obesity, crime, and just about every bad statistic you can think of. Number 4 is Vicksburg, Mississippi. You know, the job of hospitality, maybe a restaurant or a hotel, is to make the customer feel wanted, welcome, and relaxed. The people in the South have a way of making sure the complete opposite happens, and it's a horrible place to start or invest in a business, knowing that your employees are not going to treat the customer like a star that needs to be cared for, but as a hindrance. Their own presence is an annoyance to them. And to the untrained eye, you might just think you're getting bad customer service, but after living in Alabama for a year, I understand what's really happening. After a visit to Vicksburg, Mississippi, I felt drained, depressed, and I was like, yo, I'm on vacation, I'm traveling across the country, I should feel happy, I should feel good. Why am I getting these guilty feelings? It's a special type of ability to make somebody who's having a great time feel unworthy. Moving on to number 3. Jackson, Mississippi is one of the most messed up places you could put your family, and while there are nice suburbs, when you see the statistics on demographics for the nice suburbs and for the city, you'll start to see some things that don't even look right to someone who at the time was living in Alabama. Whether you're eating at a restaurant or staying at a hotel, you're going to feel like it's a competition to see how bad you can be treated. But you know what?
Jeez.
Not everybody that lives in these places is like that. And every once in a while you meet somebody who smiles, is genuine, and if it wasn't for those people, I don't understand how it could be bearable to live in these types of places. Because there are people out there, even though everything around them is gloomy and sad and depressing, they have a smile, and their smile becomes your smile. Moving on to number 2, Coleman, Alabama. This one's a little controversial. Before I went here, I had heard from people that were from here and other people that this was the most racist place in Alabama. So I went there, and I was treated nicely by everybody, and I had a really pleasant experience. While the rest of the towns on this list made me feel very uncomfortable, Coleman didn't make me feel uncomfortable. But it's because I look white. Even though I'm Hispanic, they looked at me and they said, this is one of ours, and they treated me like a gem. But here's the problem. How would they treat an African American that went to this town? On the comment section about this video, there's not 1 or 2 or 3, there's dozens of people who said this town is a sundown town, it's unwelcoming, it's unsafe, and the reason this town is on this list, despite the fact they treated me good, because it's not how you treat white people. It's about how you treat everybody. And if one person, it's like Martin Luther King had a quote, where an injustice in one place is an injustice everywhere. If it's not safe for one person, then it's not safe for everybody. You can't sit here and say, well, it's great for white people, but what about everybody else? You can have the best incomes, the lowest crime, all the best statistics. But if you're going to exclude one person from being able to benefit from that, just simply based on who they are, we've got some subscribers that are from Coleman, Alabama. I send you my greetings, as well as Birmingham, Montgomery, Baton Rouge, all these cities. I sent everybody on this list a greeting because despite the fact of all these things that happen, you're still here watching our videos, and I really appreciate that. And just like that lady who had a nice smile for me in Jackson, Mississippi, and they changed my day, you people who are still here with me, you're also giving me that big smile, and I really appreciate it. It's moments like that that help us who are struggling with these issues to just keep pushing forward. And I've met people like that as well in Montgomery and Birmingham, who all they had to offer was just a smile, a genuine facial expression that helped the next person get through their day. Number one is Uniontown, Alabama. I had days when I lived over there that a random stranger, just a small gesture, like a smile from another person that I didn't know, was so meaningful to me because they helped reaffirm that we're going to get through this, man, that not everybody's like that. I cherish those moments because they got me through a lot. And you know, now I try to do that. I try to just give a random stranger a smile in a nice, calming gesture. And I've noticed that not everybody, but to some people, whatever they're going through that day in their life, they really appreciate that. They needed it. And I learned that not in the comfortable life that I was living in Florida, but the experiences that I lived in Alabama taught me the importance of something as simple as a smile. As you can see here in this video, the
yeah, be careful. Parts of Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana you go to.
Did you know that in Racine, Wisconsin, black residents are 12 times more likely to land in prison than white residents, and that a town in Arkansas is home to the modern-day KKK headquarters? Today, we will go over the 10 most racist cities in America. To determine which American cities are the most racist, we have examined personal experiences shared by many and analyzed the history, amount of hate crime, racial disparities, and economic statistics of each city. Remember though, not everyone in these cities is racist. The many good people just happen to have one too many racist neighbors. Number 10, Danville, Illinois. In the 1800s and the early 1900s, Danville was quite notorious for racially motivated riots and street fights that typically ended in the deaths of many. One of such incidents is the 1883 Danville riot. Fast forward to over 100 years later, and although the street fights have ended, racism is still present in Danville. Sometime in May 2022, a group of protesters displayed a White Lives Matter sign the same day a gunman, allegedly fueled by racism, shot 13 people in a supermarket situated in a predominantly black neighborhood. Aside from the full-blown public displays of racism and violence against people of color, Danville census figures also tell a tale of racial discrimination. Danville has one of the widest gaps between white and black residents in terms of education, income, and health in all of Illinois. For example, while 75% of all white families in Danville are homeowners, only about 31% of black families own their homes. Also, while about 20% of Danville's white population live below the poverty line, nearly 50% of the city's black residents are below that line. If the figures don't mean much to you, maybe the personal experiences of others will. A person of color who visited Danville with their family had this to say on TripAdvisor about a local inn. They stole my $150 deposit and told us our kind wasn't welcome. very rude workers, very racist, and need to be shut down if you ask me. I will never, never, never stay at this location in Danville, Illinois again, and am going to file a lawsuit. Number 9, Rochester, New York. It is the 21st century, and from the Burning Man Festival to Louisiana Mudfest, party concepts are getting crazier with each passing second. The only kind of parties we didn't expect to exist are racist parties, but as it turns out, they are still around. In July 2022, a wealthy Rochester couple were accused of throwing a racist party, and this speaks volume about the alarming level of racism in the city. According to ACT Rochester's Hard Facts, the racial disparities in Rochester are deeper and broader than in New York and the U.S. as a whole. In Rochester, African American children are more than 4 times as likely as whites to be in poverty, and Latino children experience poverty at an alarming rate of more than 3.5 times that of white children. Furthermore, both African Americans and Latinos experience poverty at rates that are more than 3 times that of white residents. These alarming racial disparities also manifest in the life expectancy of residents. According to research from Rochester Area Community Foundation in Monroe County, your chances of dying before 65 are 46% if you are black, 52% if Latino, and only 26% if white. Needless to say, Rochester definitely earned its place on this list. Number 8, Fresno, California. Seeing how California is home to a total of 74 hate groups, making it the state with the most hate groups in all of America, it should not come as a surprise that one of its cities has earned a spot on this list. Being California's 5th largest city, Fresno is always in the spotlight, but for all the wrong reasons. Over the last 2 decades, more than 3/4 of the reported hate-driven crimes in Fresno County, 268 out of 355 incidents, have been perpetrated in Fresno, and the majority of these crimes were reportedly fueled by racism. For nearly as long as these hate-fueled crimes have persisted, people of color residing in Fresno have told the story of the racial divide in the city. To support this claim, Alan Autry, a former mayor of Fresno, used the term "a tale of 2 cities" when asked to describe the disparity in income, economic investments, property value, and quality of life between North Fresno, an area that is home to Fresno's white population, and South Fresno, the part of the city that is mainly populated by communities of color. Today, the census numbers show that only 13.76% of Fresno's white population are below the poverty line, as opposed to the 33.19% of the black population and 28.02% of the Hispanic. Number 7, Trenton, New Jersey. Trenton is the capital city of the U.S. state of New Jersey, and unfortunately, it is also the 7th most racist city in all of America. One of the many ways that racism rears its ugly head is racial profiling, and in March 2022, an unarmed black man, identified as Jajuan R. Henderson, became a victim of this racial injustice after being shot and paralyzed by officers from the Trenton Police Department while grabbing an iced tea from a car. Aside from racial profiling and police brutality, racism in Trenton manifests in the form of systematic racism in housing, employment, and healthcare. For example, during the pandemic, studies showed that Hispanic New Jerseyans were most likely to have contracted the virus, and black New Jerseyans were more likely to have died or been hospitalized from the virus than other residents. According to experts, these disparities exist to this day because systematic racism is deeply rooted in nearly all institutions in Trenton. Number 6, Peoria, Illinois. From an assistant fire chief who gained negative attention for using a racial slur on camera, to the president of an indigenous insurance company who came under fire for making a racist post on Facebook about the Super Bowl halftime performance, it's safe to say that racism is at an all-time high in Peoria. As is common in most racist cities, there is a clear divide between the white population of Peoria and residents of color, most of whom live in the South Side, a low-income neighborhood reserved for residents living below the poverty line. The median family income for Southside residents is less than half of the average resident's family income, and only 32.6% of black residents own their homes, compared to 76.1% of white residents. The good news, however, is that Rita Ali, the present mayor of Peoria, has welcomed the activities of the Joint Commission on Racial Justice and Equity, an organization founded to promote racial justice and equity within the county and city governments. Hopefully soon, the efforts of the organization will begin to make significant progress in the right direction.
The Lord Barista system is a single-serve coffee and espresso machine. It allows you
Wow.
to make a range of coffee and
From
espresso
north to south,
sizes.
from south to north.
The efforts of the organization will begin to make significant progress in the right direction. Number 5, Racine, Wisconsin. What if we told you that in Racine and Wisconsin as a whole, black residents are 12 times more likely to land in prison than white residents? Does this mean that white residents commit significantly fewer crimes? Probably not. According to experts, these deep disparities result from pervasive racial bias in the state's criminal justice system. If you thought the glaring racial disparities in Racine only affect the prison system, you could not be further from the truth, because even the high schoolers in this city are deeply affected. Nearly every year, students of color who attend the Racine Lutheran High School come forward to say that they have been harassed and dehumanized, but not much seems to have been done about it. On the aspect of numbers, things don't look good either, because census figures have shown that, on average, black families make around $26,880, which is less than half of the $63,507, the average income of white families. That said, it's not hard to see why Racine is constantly ranked among the worst cities in the United States for people of color, especially African Americans, to live. Number 4, Naperville, Illinois. The fact that Illinois has 3 entries on this list makes you wonder what the hell is happening in that state. Well, a lot, as it turns out. In 2019, some black patrons of the Naperville Buffalo Wild Wings were asked by an employee to move to a different table because a white patron felt uncomfortable sitting next to them. Barely a year later, in 2020, a woman called Naperville's Asian residents roving carpetbaggers during a council meeting. 2 years later, census figures prove that not much has changed where racism is concerned. For example, despite being a minority group in this city, the amount of black people living below the poverty line in Naperville is almost 3 times the number of white residents below the line. In addition to this, research conducted by students of North Central College proves that Naperville is indeed a sundown town with policies in place to stifle businesses owned by people of color. Number 3, Milwaukee, Waukesha, West Allis, Wisconsin. Among the many ways to determine just how racist a city really is, the most efficient method is by asking the residents. With this in mind, Suffolk University conducted a survey of 500 residents of Milwaukee. When the results came in, it was discovered that while most white people voted excellent or good when asked to rate the city, 80% of black respondents rated the city fair or poor. It is also worthy of note that all of the survey's participants identified race relations as the second biggest issue plaguing the city. A deep dive into Milwaukee's history shows that it is the second most segregated city between black and white populations in all of America, further proving that racial relations in the metro area is indeed an issue that needs urgent attention. Having said that, it goes without saying that systematic and structural racism have deep roots in Milwaukee. In recent times, this racism has manifested in terms of maternal and infant mortality, educational levels, disabilities, and unemployment. You might think twice before entering Milwaukee, especially if you are a person of color. Number 2, Harrison, Arkansas. Previously known as a sundown town, where black Americans faced the threat of death if they were outside after dusk, depending on whom you ask, Harrison is either the most racist city in America or the second most racist city. And frankly speaking, between the race riots of the early 1900s and the influx of several white supremacist organizations during the late 20th and early 21st centuries, it is easy to see why the city has earned such an unsettling reputation. Not to mention the modern-day Ku Klux Klan is headquartered in Zink, which is just a short 20-minute drive from Harrison. Although the year is 2022, a trip to Harrison would certainly give you a feel of 1844 because, according to census figures, 94.13% of Harrison's residents are white, and of the 8 black people living in Harrison, nearly 100% live below the poverty line. The numbers numbers don't look good for other people of color either, because despite being minority groups in the city, they are more likely to live below the poverty line and less likely to be employed. Also, if you ever visit the town of Harrison, brace yourself for the not-so-warm welcome you would receive from the controversial billboards that read, "White Pride Radio," and "anti-racist" is a code word for anti-white. On the bright side, it's worthy of a note that Harrison's government and well-meaning citizens have been cooperating with Harrison Community Task Force on Race Relations, an organization set up in an attempt to reform the city's racist history. Number 1. Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Iowa. In 2018, a study carried out by 24/7 Wall Street, taking into account gaps in income, unemployment, and home ownership along racial divides, ranked the worst cities for Black Americans to live. The Iowan city of Waterloo emerged at the top. According to the published results, no U.S. metro area has larger social and economic disparities along racial lines than Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Iowa. Going by the statistics cited by the report, the Black unemployment rate in Waterloo is over 5 times the white unemployment rate. Furthermore, while 73.2% of white residents own their homes in Waterloo, only 32.8% of Black residents can say the same. Although some sources have come forward to dispute these numbers, claiming that the gap is no longer as wide, one thing is certain: the racial disparity in the city of Waterloo remains a cause for concern. To this day, racism still plagues the city of Waterloo. In 2021, an incident involving derogatory terms being used on Waterloo East High School girls basketball players during a game confirmed that racial bias has rooted itself in the school system. But what about America's most dangerous cities? Check out the video we made on that topic.
You love your stuff.
Wow.
Your stuff is amazing. But what
You
if
see
bad
how
stuff happens to
it's all over the
your
place.
stuff?
All over the
Meet
place.
Lemonade, 100% digital renter's insurance. For $5 a month, it covers.
We are back with your favorite topic, states and cities. So far we have done worst cities for African Americans and best cities for African Americans. But what about the states? That's what we dive into in today's video. Hi, my name is Jared and welcome to The Five. We share 5 interesting things in Black culture and society in every episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can get notified when we release new videos. Out of the 50 states, which 5 would you guess are the worst for African Americans? Zippia.com ranked each state in 4 categories: income gap, education gap, home ownership disparity, and Black incarceration rate per 100,000. They compared the percentage differences between median white and median Black incomes. The greater the gap meant the state had a long way to go towards equality. The same thing was applied to the other categories. As always, let us know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Now let's get to the list, starting from number 5 and going down to the worst state in America for Blacks. Number 5, Minnesota. The state of Minnesota has the biggest home ownership gaps out of all the states for white and Black homeowners. This is no surprise at all for a Midwestern state, as the Midwest is notorious for its redlining history. According to the website Minnesota Compass, only 24% of Black households in the state own their own homes, compared with 77% of white Minnesota households. In Minneapolis, the Black home ownership rate is the lowest of any metro area in the country. The racial income gap is 36% in Minnesota, while the education gap sits at 15.5. The Black incarceration rate, however, is the lowest out of all the other states on this list at 1,219 per 100,000. Minnesota is not alone in being one of the worst states for African Americans in the Midwest. According to a study by a University of Iowa historian, Midwestern cities and states in general are among the worst places for Black people to live in. Number 4, Connecticut. This East Coast state made it on the worst list for its high home ownership and high income gap. Connecticut is known for being a wealthy state that's home to some of the nation's most financially well-off population, but this prosperity is largely enjoyed by white residents. While Connecticut has one of the lowest poverty rates for white residents at 6%, over 20% of the black population live in poverty. According to a report by 24/7 Wall Street, there is an almost $37,000 gap between the median annual income of black and white households. In the report, 24/7 Wall Street states racial segregation is especially pronounced in Connecticut. Not only are high affluent, predominantly white neighborhoods more common in Connecticut than across the nation, but unlike many other areas, these communities often border extremely poor, predominantly non-white neighborhoods. The black incarceration rate in Connecticut sits at 1,392 per 100,000.
Whoa.
Number 3, South Dakota.
South Dakota.
South Dakota is similar to Connecticut in its income and home ownership gap, but its black incarceration rate is slightly higher at 1,493 per 100,000. South Dakota doesn't often show up on any list pertaining to the black population, since African Americans make up only 2% of the population. The city of Sioux Falls has the largest black population in South Dakota. The education gap is particularly high in this state, similar to Connecticut. Black South Dakota residents are 18% less likely to receive a bachelor's degree. In an equality ranking released by the U.S. News and World Report that looks at how residents of various states perform in categories of employment, educational achievement, and income, South Dakota came in at number 15. At number 2, we have Iowa. Another Midwestern state makes up the list as the second worst state for African Americans. The home ownership gap between black and white residents is the second highest at 50%. Surprisingly, it has the lowest education gap out of all states on the list at 11.9%. The racial income gap is at 35%, which is on par with Minnesota. 24/7 ranked Iowa as the fourth worst state for African Americans based on home ownership and unemployment rates. The state's black population earns a median household income of less than $30,000 annually, which is lower than the nationwide black median household income. In 2018, 24/7 Wall Street named the Waterloo-Cedar Falls area as the worst place for African Americans in the U.S. The wage gap in the area is even wider at 46%. The black incarceration rate for the whole state is at 2,349 per 100,000. And at the number 1 spot, the worst state in America for black people, according to Zippia, is Wisconsin. There is no surprise here, as cities in Wisconsin often make the worst list for African Americans. And one of the main reasons for Wisconsin to land on the number 1 spot is the high incarceration rate of African Americans, which sits at 2,542 per 100,000. Black imprisonment is more than 10 times that of white imprisonment in the state. The home ownership gap is at 48%. Wallet Hub also named Wisconsin as the worst state for racial equality in employment and wealth in 2020. Wisconsin ranked the worst in labor participation rate gap, median income gap, and poverty rate gap. About 30% of Wisconsin's white population has at least a bachelor's degree, while only 13% of the black population in the state has completed college. The unemployment rate is also higher for black residents of Wisconsin compared to the national average. Milwaukee and Racine often top the worst cities in the U.S. for African Americans. Again, the Midwest has proven to be the worst region for the well-being of African Americans. Let us know.
Wow. That's crazy. But there's some light at the end of the rainbow. And just pick where you choose. Because behind this
Hi, my name is Alina, and I would like to give you a few reasons why you should consider dating a young Slavic lady. You can choose a potential.
We've done a list of the worst cities for blacks and the best cities for blacks. Today, we're going to talk about the most diverse cities in America. Diversity is an ever-growing trend in America. Of the 66 cities with a population of 300,000 or more, 70% of them were more racially diverse in 2018 than they were in 2010. That's according to the U.S. News and World Report analysis that came out last year. That list has the 10 most racially diverse cities in America. But because obviously this is called the 5, we're going to give you the top 5.
Thank goodness for that. Jesus.
Hi, my name is Jarrett, and welcome to the 5, where we share 5 interesting things in black culture and society in every episode. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can get notified when we release new videos. Now this list is based on race, not other factors such as cultural, economical, or religious diversity. Go ahead and pause this video and see if you can name the top 5 most diverse cities in America. I guarantee that you won't be able to name the number 1 city. Alright, let's start with number 5, Long Beach, California. This mid-sized city by the coast is one of the most beautiful cities in Southern California. It is located in between Los Angeles and Orange County and has a population of 467,000. It is the 43rd most populated city in America and the 7th most populated in California. Long Beach is of course famous for its ties to West Coast hip-hop, but back in the 1950s, the city was predominantly white, and it actually was named Iowa by the Sea due to the slower pace of life there. In the 1950s, the city was 97% white. In 2020, it is estimated that the population is 45% white, 15% black, with 35% of the population identifying as Hispanic of any race. Asians make up 12% of the population, 1.2% are Pacific Islanders, and 0.8% Native American. The Asian community includes the largest Cambodian community in the United States and the second largest Cambodian community outside of Asia. The black population in Long Beach grew after industrial jobs were made available to the community during World War II. This is part of the second Great Migration of African American from the south to the north and the west. There are black communities in the east side, North Long Beach, and upper west side neighborhoods. Number 4, what I probably would have named as the number 1, New York City. It is no surprise that the Big Apple made it to the list because it has been a center of diversity for a long time. Out of the population of 8.4 million, 33% are non-Hispanic white, 23% are non-Hispanic black, and 13% are Asian. 29% of the population identifies as either Hispanic or Latino regardless of race. Native Americans and Pacific Islanders make up 0.6% of the population. Approximately 37% of New York City's population is foreign-born. The biggest source countries for black immigrants include Jamaica, Haiti, Nigeria, and Trinidad and Tobago. For the first time since the U.S. Civil War, the black population declined between the years of 2000 and 2010. New York City also contains the highest total Asian population of any U.S. city. New York's racial diversity has been one of the most attractive aspects of the city. However, it is also segregated as different races reside in different parts of the city. According to the Center for Urban Research, out of almost 29,500 census blocks in the city with residents, 85% of them had the same predominant racial or ethnic population. Number 3, the capital of California, Sacramento. Sacramento is the capital city of California and has a population of 508,000. Sacramento is the fastest growing major city in California. Believe it or not, Sacramento is actually considered a city with an evolving contemporary culture and is even dubbed the most hipster city in the state. The population in Sacramento is about 35% non-Hispanic white, 15% non-Hispanic black, 22% Asian, and almost 3% Native American and Pacific Islander. Hispanics or Latinos of any race make up about 29% of the population. Even back in 2002, the Civil Rights Project at Harvard University conducted Time magazine named Sacramento America's most diverse city. What makes Sacramento even more appealing is that the city is also one of the most well-integrated cities in America. Sacramento actively addressed segregated neighborhoods by introducing an inclusionary housing policy. The city passed the Mixed Income Housing Ordinance in 2000 that applied to all resident developments over 9 units in new growth areas. The new law required that 15% of all units be affordable housing. This was an effort to fight racial and economic segregation by allowing mid to low income families to purchase homes in multiple areas that would have been out of reach to them. Number 2, Oakland, California. Oakland is another diverse city in California that sometimes gets overshadowed by neighboring San Francisco, but it also has its own flavor and history. After the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, many San Francisco residents moved to Oakland, which helped grow the population. Today, the Port of Oakland is the busiest port in the entirety of Northern California and the 5th busiest in America. The city of Oakland has a population of around 430,000, out of which 42% are white, 28% are black, 18% are Asian, and 26% are Hispanic or Latino. Native Americans and Pacific Islanders make up about 2% of the population. Hispanics have been the second largest ethnic group in Oakland since 2002. Before then, the black population was in second place. The black population, however, remains the second largest racial group in the city. Of course, everyone knows Oakland is another city made famous through West Coast hip-hop. And at the number 1 spot out of all the U.S. cities, we have Stockton, California. I bet you didn't get that one. Stockton is a city located in the Central Valley of California. It is the smallest city on our list with a population of about 311,000, but also the most diverse. It was named an All-American City in 1999, 2004, 2015, and again in 2017. The racial makeup of the city is 49% white, 23% Asian, 13% black, and 42% Hispanic or Latino of any race. Native American and Pacific Islanders make up around 1.2% of the population. Unfortunately, several social economic problems have landed Stockton on various negative lists, including our list of the worst cities in the West Coast for blacks. But the city has also been in the center of various rehabilitation efforts to lift a good portion of the residents out of poverty. Now, I'm sure there are other cities that you thought would have made it into this list. I'm surprised that there were so many in California. Let me know the ones you thought about in the comments. That's it for this episode of The Five. We'll be back with another episode in Black Hole.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised myself, California being like that. Wow. Wherever you go in America, this if you're black, just be aware of the cities and states you go through, whether they're in the South or whether they're in the Midwest, and whether they're in the East, even Northwest, and I think more about it. Just be careful wherever you go. Get some stats and join the Facebook group, and they can tell you. But yeah, places like upstate New York, some of your eastern coast cities like Boston, and it looks diverse, but no. Philadelphia, no, I'm not feeling that. Seems like parts of Virginia seem pretty nice. Maryland, I don't know. But anyway, that's my opinion. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope this don't offend anybody from any of them cities or states, but it is what it is. So, and to other people, this kind of is an eye-opener. Because, if anything, you don't want to get caught up and get out there and get surprised. Alright then, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And yeah, this is an eye-opener, even with the first video about the lynching. And the Lewistown situation was about that when they first came into that area, all the veterans came back, but the black veterans, they didn't want to rent to black veterans in Lewistown, Levittown or Lewistown. So that's what that video, I played that video was about. I don't know how it is now in that part of New York, but that's what it was. And that's the history of it. So, yeah, do your diligence. If you're an African American family or if you know anybody. But if as far as everybody else, I guess they're good. I guess it won't affect you as much. But if you're a person of color, just being out of the rest of stress areas, you probably need to know if you think about moving to another city or another state, where to go. Alright then, guys, I hope you enjoy this next one. See you on the next video. Good day.